Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Just recently, we blazed past the 30,000 subscriber milestone, and Jak Atlas Explained is on its way. And for those of you paying attention, you might have picked up on a theme. My road to 100,000 subscriber special is very 5Ds themed, and thus covers all the signers and not so signers. But what's not on the list are the first major antagonists of our Dragon Destined duelists, the Dark Signers. And that just won't do. Premiering in the May 2009 core set Raging Battle, Earthbound Immortals are the sinister counterparts of the Signer Dragons, having been sealed in the Earth in ages past, but were released thanks to the Zero Reverse incident, leading the Scions to battle it out with the Signers to bring about a new age of darkness. And while I would never advocate for the world to be plunged into a state of woe and corruption beyond recognition, let's face it, the good guys in this series have so much plot armor, it's easy to see why none of them run spellcaster decks. So maybe a little extra knowledge can help even the playing field and make things more interesting. So let's start by taking our hot air balloons way up into the skies so we can see what we're working with, see how all the lines flow together, then find the best vessels for their ancient might. It's time to make some earth-shattering plays with Earthbound Immortals. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and there's no better way to get there than on our duel runners. Our next stop is 40k, which means Leo and Luna Explained, where we'll be covering Ancient Fairy Dragon's companions, the Power Tool Dragons, Morphtronics, and any other cards that are more than meets the eye. We've also got our Discord where, yes, this message is true. I am, in fact, Laugh Attribute. I also have a Twitch where you can join me for viewer duels, progression polls pulls, and chaos draft pulls for the foreseeable future. And don't forget about my Patreon, where you can gain access to my videos early, reach some of these milestones, as well as helping to determine which videos I make. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So what's the deal with Earthbound Immortals? Well, they're a series of level 10 dark monsters of varying types that can't be targeted for attacks and can attack directly, which ain't no small potatoes because these monsters are massive. However, there can only ever be one Earthbound Immortal monster on the field at a time, so no spamming, and if there's no face-up field spell card on the field, it's destroyed. In fact, if I had a nickel for every archetype that you could only control a single member of and relied on having a field spell to keep them from self-destructing, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that they printed the same gimmick twice. When it comes to aesthetics, they're based on the Nazca lines found in southern Peru. They're massive geoglyphs that are so big, many of them can only be seen in their entirety from an aerial view. Now, I don't have any spies committing corporate espionage for me yet, so take this with a massive grain of salt, but I imagine this influence was chosen as a way to differentiate 5Ds from the relatively more kid-friendly DM and GX eras, while still maintaining an air of ancient mysticism. However, it should be noted that the exact purpose of the Nazca lines remains unclear in the field of academics, so casting them as these symbols of demonic power is, well, basically in keeping with media using ancient artifacts and concepts beyond modern understanding as evil MacGuffins. Now, as a guy who lives in North America, I'm not in a position to talk about what effects this perception has on others, but you should keep all this in mind just in case. Alright, now that the anthropology lesson is over, let's talk about these mortifying monstrosities. Earthbound Immortal Kokopakapu is a fiend monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, and if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. Now, that seems to be at odds with what the Earthbound Immortals are all about, right? Why would you go through all this trouble for a gigantic direct attacker just to go back to attacking regularly? Well, sometimes problem monsters have to be dealt with, and 3000 attack is set up to deal with a lot of threats. And because it has that sweet Flame Wingman effect, then all else being equal, if you destroy an attack position monster with this, it'll be the same amount of damage as if you attacked directly. How's that for Kokopacking a punch? Earthbound Immortal Aslapiscu is a winged beast monster with 2500 attack and defense, and when this face-up card leaves the field, except by its own effect, destroy as many face-up monsters your opponent controls as possible. And if you do, inflict 800 points of damage for each monster destroyed. So you're dealing a sweet 2500 each turn, and if your opponent does anything about it, you lightning vortex your opponent while doing a little bit of extra damage on the side. But check this, it gets even worse, because it doesn't list any stipulations about how it has to leave the field, other than its own effect and being face up. Because even though it says when, it is a mandatory effect. So if you use it as link material, board wipe. Attributed as cost? Board wipe. Make it an equip card before sending the equipped monster to the grave? Yeah, that's a freaking board wipe. Combine this with Black Rose Garden to fill your opponent's field, and you've got a recipe for an FTK by triggering this twice against a whole field. It's an easy way to Azlapiscu off your opponent. Earthbound Immortal Kokoraya is a reptile monster with 2800 attack and 1800 defense, and if this card is destroyed by a card effect, except its own, destroy all cards on the field. So instead of just nuking your opponent's monsters like Azlapiscu, Kokoraya just smashes everything, including your own cards, so buyer beware. Because of this, you can see why it isn't quite as abused as a combo payoff. But if you wanted a way to ensure your opponent wasn't going to have anything to leverage into a win once they cleared your big boss away, front or back row, this'll do it. Well, unless your opponent's cards have effect destruction protection, or they float, but hey, what'd you expect? We're still in 5Ds. Anime cards weren't meant to be good, they were meant to be cool. Earthbound Immortal Chaku Chalua is a fish monster with 2900 attack and 2400 defense, and once per turn you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to half this card's defense on the field, but this card can't attack during the turn you activate this effect. And while this card is in defense position, your opponent can't conduct their battle phase. This probably makes Chaku the best team player out of all of the Immortals. While the whale here couldn't be targeted for attacks anyway, being in defense position means your other monsters basically can't be attacked either. And being able to add on an extra 1200 points of damage each turn ain't too shabby. Use this effect properly, and you'll find yourself racking up some very fantastic finishes. Earthbound Immortal Kusulu is a beast monster with 2800 attack and 2400 defense, and if this card would be destroyed by battle, you contribute another monster instead, and if you do, have your opponent's life points. This is probably the worst out of all the Immortals, not gonna lie. Its effect can't trigger from being attacked because it just can't be attacked, and if you negate that effect, you're probably negating all of its effects. So it's basically a deterrent to keep your opponent from boosting the attack of Kusulu's attack target, which you probably don't want to do because you can just attack directly. It's not like Kokapakapu where you kinda want to attack monsters with. Sure, having your opponent's life points seems pretty cool, but remember, if it was worth all the trouble, you'd see more people trying to play Destiny Hero Dogma. Trust me, the only thing this card is up to is some monkey business. Earthbound Immortal Uru is an insect monster with 3000 attack and defense, and once per turn you contribute a monster, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and take control of that target until the end phase. A repeatable enemy controller, you say? This was a lot more impressive before Change of Heart got unbanned, not gonna lie. But hey, a way to take one of your opponent's monsters is no joke, especially now that we live in the age of generic Link monster material. And really, there isn't anything quite like dismantling your opponent's field by taking their most precious piece and getting it caught in your spider's web. And now, the final and most powerful member of the team, Earthbound Immortal Wiracocha Rosca, another winged beast monster with 100 attack and defense, which is hilarious, but hold on a moment, it'll all make sense in just a second. If this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 to 3 cards you control, but no more than your opponent has cards in their hand. Shuffle your targets into the deck, then discard the same number of random cards from your opponent's hand, or as many as possible, and if you do, this card gains 1000 attack for each card discarded by this effect. Wow, that is really convoluted. Not only do you need the tribute fodder for the normal summon, you'll need up to 3 spare cards you don't mind getting rid of sent back to the deck. And here's hoping that what you discard from your opponent's hand does nothing. Heck, let's hope they even have cards in their hand to begin with. Otherwise, you'll have a 100 attack and defense level 10 monster that can attack directly. Good luck getting that W on the 80 turn clock. Now, this is a major downgrade from the anime. Sure, it only had 1 attack point there, but if you skipped your battle phase, you got to set your opponent's life points to 1. So, instead of making the final boss Immortal a real power bomb in paper play, they ended up messing with it so much it became a laughingstock, a change I do not condone. That covers all the level 10 Earthbounds, but a cult is nothing without their robed supplicants, and the Dark Signers are no different. Earthbound Linewalker is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 1200 attack and 1900 defense, and while they're on the field, Earthbound Immortal monsters can't be destroyed by their own effects. Oh, that's sweet. It's like you get a whole second field spell. Though, if they were going to be the designated Immortal Protector, you think they would have gotten a better stat line. Like, 1900 defense is pretty good for a level 4, but this isn't the anime. You can't at normal summon and face-up defense position. So without any assistance, a 1200 attack point monster has to wait by their lonesome until a turn passes and they can assume a better posture. However, its ability to keep MST from being your opponent's win condition is a nice way to counteract the theme's biggest drawback, which isn't too controversial. I wouldn't say they're crossing any lines here. Earthbound Greater Line Walker is a level 8 Dark Fiend monster with 2900 attack and defense, and if you control any number of synchro monsters, and you have any number of synchro monsters in your grave, you can special summon this card from your hand. During your main phase, you can add an Earthbound Immortal monster from your deck or grave to your hand, and if an Earthbound Immortal monster is normal summoned while this card is on the field, you can make your opponent's life points 3000. So yeah, this card is just one big Rex Goodwin reference. The physique, the attention drawn to the left arm, even the synchro effect harkens back to Rex's twin synchro monsters, Sun Dragon Inti and Moon Dragon Quia, which swap places between the field and the grave. And if you combine the Ace Immortals attack, Wiriko Churrasca, with Greater Line Walker, you get 3000, emulating that Immortal's life-setting effect for a quick win the next turn. Though if you're someone who prioritizes winning over flavor, you monster, you could just grab Kokopakapu or Uru and just attack for game. Either way, between your two line walkers, this one certainly is the greater of two evils. Now, because of how closely Greater Line Walker is associated with Rex Goodwin, does that mean we'll have to go over all their Inca cards? Well, I suppose we aren't going to have much chance to elsewhere, but not all of them. This isn't Rex Goodwin Explained after all. See, the new Earthbound support that was released in Immortal Destiny does revolve around the use of synchros, despite there being none for the theme outside of a single, tangentially related monster. And those new cards, along with their associated reprints, made it pretty clear what they were meant to be used for. So, Ascator Dawnwalker is a level 5 Earth Spellcaster monster with 2300 attack and 1500 defense. You can discard a card to special summon this card from your hand in defense position, then you can special summon a Fire Ant Ascator from your hand or deck. But you're not able to special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except synchro monsters. Fire Ant Ascator, on the other hand, is a level 3 Earth Insect Tuner monster with 700 attack and 1300 defense. And when this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the grave, you can target a level 5 monster in your grave and special summon that target, but its effects are negated and is sent to the grave during the end phase of this turn. For our purposes, the effect is really just garnish. What really matters is that you can pitch a card in hand to summon a level 5 non-tuner, Dawnwalker, which immediately pairs with a level 3 tuner, Fire Ant. And while you can only special summon synchro monsters from your extra deck before and after you use this effect, it doesn't limit you on how you use them, so any generic level 8 synchro monster is at your fingertips. But what they're meant to make is Sun Dragon Inti, a level 8 light dragon synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2800 defense, requiring Fire Ant Ascator for the tuner, and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. If this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the grave, destroy the monster that destroyed this card, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack that monster had on the field. And once per turn, during the standby phase of the next turn after this card on the field was destroyed, you can target a Moon Dragon Quia in your grave and special summon it. So Sun Dragon only really does stuff in response to being destroyed, and considering the amount of attack points needed to get over Inti, then it's fair to say your opponent's in for quite the reprimand. Though you'd think for a mighty dragon, Inti would be a bit more proactive, instead of just waiting for things to happen to it, huh? Well, Rex likes it well enough, and no one's going to tell the multi-billionaire that they're wrong, so I guess by default that makes Inti the star of the show. On the other hand, we have Supe Duskwalker. They're also a level 5 Earth Spellcaster, though they have 2200 attack and 1900 defense. Otherwise, they're identical to Dawnwalker, discarding a card to special summon themselves and locking your extra deck into only synchro summons that turn. But this time you special summon Supe, which is a level 1 Earth Fiend Tuner monster with 300 attack and 100 defense, and when this card is sent from the field to the grave by a card effect, you can special summon an Oracle of the Sun from your deck, and if you do, double its attack, also return it to the hand during the end phase. Put these two together, and this time you have access to any generic level 6 synchro monster, though the story mode choice is going to be Moon Dragon Quia, a level 6 Dark Dragon synchro monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring Supe as the tuner, and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. If this card is targeted for an attack, you gain life points equal to half the attacking monster's attack. And if this card on the field is destroyed, you can target a Sun Dragon Inti in your grave and special summon it. Hey, I'll say this, at least the revival effect is quicker than Inti. I mean, would it kill them to get out of bed on time so we don't get run over by an opponent's horde of monsters? It might still be on daylight savings time. Oh, also, Oracle of the Sun exists. They're a level 5 light spellcaster monster with 1000 attack and 2000 defense, and if only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and when this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the grave, you can add a Fire Ant Ascator or Supe from your deck to your hand. Oracle was kind of like the Dawn and Duskwalker of its day, being a free special summon that lines up with Fire Ant and Supe for the Incan Dragons, though it wasn't a one-card combo like their modern versions. Which I guess means they aren't much of an Oracle, right? I mean, if they could see the future, you'd think they would have stepped up their game a bit. That's almost all of our detour, but there's still the matter of that one synchro monster that's kind of on the fringes of our theme. 100 Eyes Dragon is a level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring a Dark Tuner and one or more non-tuner Fiend monsters as material. And once per turn, you can banish a level 6 or lower Dark Effect monster from your grave, and until the end phase, this card's name becomes that banished monster's name, and replace this effect with that banished monster's effects. And if this card is destroyed and sent to the grave, add an Earthbound Immortal monster from your deck to your hand. Copying monster effects is pretty sweet, but it's much more balanced here by only being able to emulate a very specific set of monsters, though I'd hardly accuse the Dark Monster pool of being short on good effects. And hey, if you need synchros for your new Earthbound Immortal cards, you could do worse than one that floats into a search for your theme. Though it's funny, you can't actually make them with the new walkers because they're spellcasters, not fiends, and Fire Ant isn't a dark. So you're telling me we got 2 retrains of Oracle of the Sun, but this radical looking beastie is still stuck in dark synchro jail? Whoever made these decisions clearly lacks an eye for detail. Alright, that's all of the Earthbound Immortal and Earthbound Immortal adjacent monsters. Now it's time to talk about the spells and traps. Earthbound Immortal Revival is a normal spell that has you discarding a card as cost, then targeting an Earthbound Immortal monster and a field spell in your grave and adding those targets to your hand. So you basically get to swap out 2 cards from your hand for 2 key cards in your Earthbound Immortal strategy from your grave. It doesn't do anything to help it along, mind you, but it does put them in your hand, so that's something. Though hey, question, if they're immortal, why do they need reviving? They're immortals. Seems a bit antithetical. Earthbound Whirlwind is a normal spell that you can activate if you control an Earthbound Immortal monster to destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. So hey, an on-theme Harpy's Feather Duster. Though, like Uru, this was a lot more impressive when Feather Duster was on the ban list. Funny how power creep can really change the whirlwinds of fortune. Earthbound Geoglyph is a field spell that can't be targeted or destroyed while any level 10 monsters are on the field. It can treat a synchro monster as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of an Earthbound Immortal monster, and if a synchro monster is special summoned except during the damage step, you can add an Earthbound Immortal spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Yeah, this is where these synchro synergies really kick into overdrive. Just remember though, you can't even search all of your on-theme spells and traps with this, because it has to be an Earthbound Immortal spell or trap, so Earthbound Whirlwind is out of the question. Heck, out of our 8 pieces of spell and trap support, only half of them are eligible for this search. Oh well, at least we have a field spell that's got its own field barrier built in once you get an Earthbound Immortal online, making them much more resilient and reliable. And only needing a single tribute out of your easy to summon synchros is a nice touch. Now, how about we get another wave of support that gives us a synchro with relevant effects to our theme, huh? Rex has Jeff Bezos money, I don't see what's stopping him. Offerings to the Immortals is a normal trap that you can activate when your opponent's monster declares a direct attack while your life points are 3000 or less. You negate the attack, and if you do, special summon 2 ceremonial tokens, which are level 1 Earth Rock monsters with 0 attack and defense. And if you do that, add an Earthbound Immortal card, Earthbound Revival, or Roar of the Earthbound from your deck to your hand. The tokens cannot be tributed except for the tribute summon of an Earthbound Immortal monster and can't be used as synchro material. So yeah, it gives you everything you need to summon an Earthbound Immortal, but you need to take a direct attack while you're very low on life points, and it doesn't outright end the battle phase, so if it wasn't triggered on the last attack your opponent can do, any leftover attacks can run over these teeny tiny tokens. That being said, we've got some fun errata trivia here, because as it turns out, the cards Earthbound Revival and Roar of the Earthbound are not in print. That's what their original names were here in the TCG, but as of their most recent printing in Immortal Destiny, they've been changed to Earthbound Immortal Revival and Roar of the Earthbound Immortal to be more in line with their original translation. But for some reason, this card wasn't reprinted to errata their effect to match. Oh, I know why. It's because this card is a farce, a sin that spits in the face of all that is card gaming, and with Raw as my witness, I will... Oh, it looks like it's getting a reprint in Legendary Duelist Season 3. May Ra have mercy on our souls. Revival of the Immortals is a normal trap that targets an Earthbound Immortal monster in your grave and special summons it, but it can't declare an attack this turn. Also, your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving it. However, all of its effects are still intact, so if Kokopakapu defeats a monster, you still get to deal burn damage, Uru can still steal, and Chaku Chalua can still cause a defense lock. All in all, it's a pretty good deal, even if they are giving up their signature ability. I am, of course, lying through my teeth, because Back to the Front power creeps this in every way. It's not like Revival of the Immortals is searchable, at least not in a way that Back to the Front can't be, and while it wouldn't be able to declare an attack that turn anyway because it's in defense position, it can end up doing battle damage later once you change it to attack position. Seriously, I thought these things were supposed to be the culminated demonic energy of ancient deities. Why is their spell and trap support so bland? Roar of the Earthbound Immortal is a continuous trap that, once per turn, if an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, destroy that target, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the destroyed monster's attack. But you must control an Earthbound Immortal monster with attack higher than the attack of the attacking monster to activate this effect. This makes Roar kind of like a substitute Chaku Chalua, giving you the ability to protect your other monsters from being run over by battle while you have an Earthbound Immortal. And since our attack values are quite high, there's a wide range of monsters that can be affected by this, but anything with 3,000 or more won't even care. It's also not going to have much impact after the first activation. You can certainly surprise someone by flipping up Roar in response to an attack, but after that it's a known quantity, which seems at odds with its sneaky nature. Like, if you scream before you explode a monster, you're giving away the element of surprise that trap cards are supposed to provide. Get with the program. Ultimate Earthbound Immortal is a continuous trap card, and if a normal summoned or set Earthbound Immortal monster is on the field, you can target a face-up monster on the field and destroy it. This makes for a great supplement to any of our Immortals because now you can pick off problem monsters, no sweat. Though you're not just able to reborn an Immortal and get the effect, you do need to summon it via legit normal summon. But like, really? You're showing off the ultimate Earthbound Immortal and your example is Wiracocha? Earthbound Wave is a counter trap that you can activate when your opponent activates a spell or trap card while you control an Earthbound Immortal monster and destroy it. Something would have been more impressive if Solemn Judgment wasn't back to 3. Seriously, Earthbound Immortals is like a museum of card design balancing attempts, complete with a serious case of being outdated. It is nice to have cards that help us protect our investments, stopping things like Twin Twisters and MSTs from popping our field spell, but would it have been too much to make it searchable? Or like, better? Because without even being a name-stamped member of the theme, you can waive any chance of playability goodbye. Okay, so that's all the Earthbound Immortal cards, but what do we do with them? Well, kinda like with the Egyptian gods, they don't really mesh well together. Rather, they all have kind of the same game plan, just with interchangeable additional effects. Though in a modern context, performing an OTK with Uru and Greater Linewalker is probably the way to go. So we'll want to make sure your opponent can't do anything to get in your way, while we assemble a lethal push for game. So what can we play to help them out? Well, any kind of effect that gets cards off your opponent's field before the battle phase is a welcome addition. This rules out evenly matched, but 3 copies of Raigeki and Harpy's Feather Duster are cheap board wipes that can deal with interaction. If you want more flexibility, Lightning Storm is another great option, but we'll want to avoid cards that require discard costs like Twin Twisters, because we'll need all the cards we can get. While Earthbound Geoglyph is pretty useful, we actually have a few other field spells that you might want to look into. Since they're all level 10, the Earthbound Immortals all gain protection from Mound of the Bound Creator, keeping them safe from targeting and destruction effects while adding a little extra burn when you run over monsters, kinda like with Kokopekapu. Mausoleum of the Emperor can also help if you don't have the full combo assembled. Setting up your synchros in the grave and field alongside Geoglyph is currently the best way to set up your OTK, but if you don't have access to Greater Linewalker, but you do have an Earthbound Immortal, you can just pay 2,000 life points to put him on the field. And thankfully, you can just pay your opponent back for the expense with a giant direct attack. Since Greater Linewalker needs a synchro both on the field and in the grave to special summon themselves, the quickest way to handle this is by using one as synchro material for another. Sadly, there isn't an easily accessible level 6 synchro that handles this, so you'll need some supplemental support. Emergency Teleport is always a good pick. You can use Supei Duskwalker to make the level 6 synchro of your choice, then you can E-Tellier Psyframe Gear Gamma onto the board to make the level 8. And bonus, this gives you an excuse to run Gamma as a hand trap. My recommendation would be Stardust Charge Warrior for that sweet draw, then go into Chaos Ruler the Chaotic Magical Dragon, since it can dig 5 cards deep to try to get you your Greater Line Walker. Alternatively, you can make whatever synchro you want with either walker, and use Extra Foolish Burial to throw a synchro from your extra deck into the grave. You can't brick on Driver if you don't run it after all. As for a silly tech pick, I'd go with all the Danger Monsters. Both the walkers discard as cost for their effects, as well as Earthbound Immortal Revival if you want to get really lost in the sauce. This adds some removal to your deck, as well as special summoning extra bodies onto the board as tribute fodder. Or just to smash someone in the face with Bigfoot. After all, if we go by attack values, a Yeti and a giant spider god of malice are basically the same thing. And that's all I have to say about Earthbound Immortals. As of now, the deck has everything it needs to close out games. Now it just needs the consistency and protection to pull it off against the top tables. And by tacking this onto a synchro-heavy deck that doesn't utilize its normal summon, you could add a way to win the game out of nowhere at the drop of a hat. And hey, with Dinomorphias looking to take a swipe at meta viability, you won't even have to worry about doing the Greater Linewalker combo. So if you're looking for a sign to invest, well, you're looking at it. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Earthbound Immortals the horsemen of a new dueling apocalypse, or are they earthbound to fail? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to show your support, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Ashling Waltz, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Ava Gule, Adams Ajdel, Benjamin Meisner, Biohazard 011, Cryptic Gamer, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yugioh, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Howling Zangetsu, Inblink, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Mighty Action X, Meteornus, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Ruxith Sarani, Shooting Star 3300, The Fresh Prince of Con Air, The Wizard Moose, Tyler Cranston and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Corbinisms, Cozy Boat 275, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Jesus Garcia, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Nitromo, RGS, Rem T. Bright, Star-Lord 777, and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video full of icons of deific power, check out this video I did covering the Egyptian gods. And if you want to see two Yugi-tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenkinai's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.